Welcome to Briefly Creative, a podcast that explores insights, stories, and frameworks for living a meaningful creative life. I'm your host, Greg Gunn. Have you ever designed something that you knew in your designer heart of hearts was absolutely brilliant? Perhaps it solved the problem in an elegant way and looked fantastic while doing so. It was like the universe had given you a gift. But then, when you shared it with your client or stakeholder, your clever solution was met with looks of confusion and a less than enthusiastic response. Now, this could happen for a variety of reasons, but let's assume your idea was indeed brilliant. Why can't anyone see what you see? Let's head to Sweden and find out. In this episode, I want to talk about how to make your new and innovative ideas more palatable to other people without having to give up what makes them magic. Refused is a Swedish hardcore band that formed in 1991 and continues to perform today. They released their third album, The Shape of Punk to Come, in 1998 to both commercial and critical failure. The Wild album melded hardcore with jazz, progressive rock, and electronica, and the lack of support for the album led to their tour being canceled and their eventual disbandment. 1 year after its release, the album exploded in popularity. Decades later, it became this influential album with titans of rock citing Refused as inspiring pioneers of their genre. Suffice it to say, Refused were ahead of their time. The world wasn't ready for that album in 1991, not because it wasn't brilliant, boundary-pushing music, but because it was too far beyond our expectations. For the record, it is a fantastic album, and I definitely didn't understand it at the time. But years later, lo and behold, someone shared it again, and I was like, this album is blowing my freaking mind right now. It's so good. You should definitely check it out. Okay, let's get back to our design dilemma. Now, there is a chance that you may have presented your own version of The Shape of Punk to Come. You may have refused yourself, if you will. Maybe you designed something so brilliant that it crossed that expectation line and disconnected itself from your client's realm of possibility. How then might you push the proverbial design envelope and design something new that will also see the light of day? Another way to think about it is, how do you sell something so new and so different? Let me introduce you to the Maya principle. By Maya, I mean M-A-Y-A principle. Coined by industrial designer Raymond Loewy, the Maya design philosophy suggests the most advanced yet acceptable, M-A-Y-A, idea is most likely to prevail. And the thinking is that an idea will resonate better if it feels both new and familiar. So new enough to pique someone's interest, but familiar enough that it won't scare or confuse them. I like to think about it like designing right up to the edge of the expectation line, but not crossing it. The Maya principle has merit. It's a logical approach for selling a new idea to people, and it's probably the right approach in most cases, professionally speaking. But at the same time, Refused were onto something, albeit way too early. And without that wild push into the unfamiliar, their influence on future artists may not have happened. And the creative results of those artists may not exist at all. So although you may be way ahead of your time, don't underestimate the value of acting on a brilliant idea right now, because it may lead you somewhere interesting years later. Thanks for joining me today. You can find more info, show notes, and a transcript of this episode at brieflycreative.fm. And if you enjoyed what you heard, consider rating and reviewing the show on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to it. It would mean the world to me and really help the show out. Also, we have a weekly newsletter. You can read more about the episode and find fun, relevant links to things like tutorials, tools, and other useful creative adjacent stuff that I find. Thanks again for listening, and remember, what worked for someone else may not work the same way for you, but there's always something to learn from it. See you next time.